Now, it may shock you to realize that your whole process is to search for failures. You've got this hypothesis, you want to try to disprove it. If you can't disprove it, that reinforces the credibility of your hypothesis. Theories can never be proved. That may shock you. They never can be proved. What they can do is they might defy being disproved. Someone has a theory, great, you try to disprove it. If you can't, that starts to elevate that hypothesis to the level of a theory, but it may get more and more credible the more you try to disprove it, but it's never really proven. That's an important concept to get across. Now, Shannon, we're now in the area of what we call the information sciences. Claude Shannon defined what he called the verifiability definition of meaning. What do we mean by meaning? It has to be verifiable to have meaning. Untestable statements are meaningless. Grandma says there are gnomes in the garden, but they always manage to be invisible when you're looking for them, you see. Well, we smile at that, but the point is, you see, that's a meaningless statement. Why is it? Because there's no way to verify it, you see. Well, you can't disprove it. That's not proving it's true. So untestable statements are meaningless, according to the Shannon verifiability theory of meaning. Huxley said, the great tragedy of science is the slaying of a beautiful hypothesis by an ugly fact. You see, facts that aren't convenient for your theory, often people try to discard them. Well, find some excuse why that doesn't fit the theory. Well, that's not being scientific. Non-falsifiable hypotheses are not only non-scientific, they're intellectually dishonest. The idea of a hypothesis, it should be testable. And if you can test it and can't disprove it, that doesn't prove it's true, but it gives it a step in that direction. In logic, they have a thing called argumentum ignorantium, the argument from ignorance. The assertion that something must be true simply because it hasn't been proved false is nonsense. And yet we'll find ourselves, if you're not on your guard, we do that all the time. Because you can't disprove it, it must be true. No. Error, error, error. So if you can't use scientific method, and many people can't, people that are dealing with cosmology, what happened 100 billion years ago, we don't know. In other words, you make guesses, and remember that they're guesses, fine. What are substitutes for the scientific method? Well, one is called the deductive method. You derive theories from generalizations about the universe. Somebody has a generalization that seems acceptable, and we derive theories from that. That's not the same thing as proving they're true. You follow me? They're deductively logical, yeah. Here is the big one, what we call mathematical proofs. People make very elegant consistencies within a synthetic universe, a man-made. Mathematics is sometimes called the man-made universe. You define some symbols, and you define how they relate to each other, and you find that that relationship or that model is useful. And so you start getting into that more and more elegant models. The thing you lose sight of is you want to have evidence that that model fits reality. Many times it'll fit reality for a certain domain, but not others. And examples are, there are rules that occur in physics of the kitchen that don't fit in the area of the atom. The equations are different because there's different forces at work and so forth. The point is we can make very, very elegant models mathematically, but they are not reality, no matter how elegant they are. And one of the things we're discovering is that some of the most brilliant minds on the planet Earth are deeply involved in the most elegant mathematics you can imagine. That doesn't mean they fit reality. And that's what we're going to discover. Much of the theories about the so-called Big Bang, these things that come out of astronomy and astrophysics, are being end run by ugly data. Doesn't fit the model. There's another thing called domains of validity. I've touched on that. There's a model or a set of equations that may have a limited domain of validity, and that's why it needs to be tested. They have carbon-14 for dating, but it turns out for long dating, there's errors that creep in. So you always need to validate the model you're using. But the other thing that's taken place in the scientific world, in the absence of those things, are what we call peer review. In other words, you've got a scientific theory, you submit it to a publication, and you have other scientists that are considered your peers react to that and to give it encouragement or discouragement, if you will. It turns out that's the way our world really works. Publish or perish is the idea in universities. You need to publish that in a peer-reviewed journal and get their reactions. If they like it, you're elevated. If they don't, you're rejected. You're a victim of the peer review. Well, that just ossifies or freezes the current assumptions. And it really results in the censorship of competing hypotheses. If the people reviewing your paper hold theories that are different than yours, they're likely to disparage that. And that's not just in theology, it's even in physics. That may surprise you. So some caveats. Inference is not proof. You can make an inference, but that's not the same as proof. Something else, to give you another example, you want to avoid the logical fallacy of asserting the consequent. Let me give you an example. If A, then B. In other words, if B is true, therefore A is true. That makes sense, doesn't it? Not necessarily. The street is wet, therefore it must be raining. No, this ignores a possible alternative issue. A street cleaning machine just went by. See, just because if A then B doesn't and you happen to know B is true, doesn't mean A is, because we could give other examples, but that's the idea. The illusion of knowledge, the only one certain barrier to truth, is the conviction that you already have it. And that pervades in most people in professional fields because they believe they've got a truth, and that makes them blind to competing truths, if you will. And Borson's saying the greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge. The Lord has haunted me with this phrase for many, many months, and now I'm beginning to understand what He's leading me to. Metaphors reign where mysteries reside. How often there's something we don't understand, we give it an elegant name or an anecdotal relation, and that takes over instead of analyzing the mystery. Metaphors reign where mysteries reside. Science versus we say science and technology. Great. What's the difference between science and technology? Technology produces useful products. That's why we have cell phones. That's why we have computers. That's why you can make a long list of the incredible things that have come to us in the last 30, 40 years. The changes are astonishing from technology, because technology is validated by having things happen. Okay? Science has become a religion with a priesthood. I've used this before, but I love it. It just fits here. It's a little poem I saw as a kid. I find it fits physics so perfectly. The Blind Men and the Elephant. It was 6 men of Hindustan, to learning much inclined, who went to see the elephant, though all of them were blind, that each by observation might satisfy his mind. The first approached the elephant, and happening to fall against his broad and sturdy side, at once began to bawl, "God bless me, but the elephant is nothing but a wall." The second, feeling of the tusk, cried, "Ho, what have we here? So very round and smooth and sharp, to me 'tis mighty clear, this wonder of an elephant is very like a spear." The third approached the animal, and happening to take the squirming trunk within his hands, thus boldly up and spake, "I see," quoth he, "the elephant is very like a snake." The fourth reached out his eager hand and felt about the knee, "And what most this wondrous beast is like is mighty plain," quoth he. "'Tis clear enough the elephant is very like a tree." The fifth, who chanced to touch the ear, said, "Even the blindest man can tell that what this resembles most, deny the fact who can. This marvel of an elephant is very like a fan." The sixth no sooner had begun about the beast to grope, when seizing upon the swinging tail that fell within his scope, "I see," quoth he, "the elephant is very like a rope." And so these men of Hindustan disputed loud and long, each in his own opinion exceeding stiff and strong, though each was partly in the right, and all were in the wrong. So often theologic wars, or I'll say physics wars, the disputants, I ween, rail on in utter ignorance of what each other mean and prate about an elephant. Not one of them has seen. That fits in my mind.